What's going on, buddy? My name is Eason, and welcome back to another video. And today, we're going to be defining political boundaries for AP Human Geography. So we learned about types of regions, nations, and states, and now we're going to get into those boundaries for those states and regions. So political boundaries and divisions of governance between states and within them reflect balances of power that have been negotiated or imposed. Now, that might sound a little confusing. However, boundaries are either put up from negotiation or they were already there, from a landform, or they were, there due to the creation of a state or area, or to separate separate one region into two, kind of like Korea. That would also be negotiated, I think. But let's get into types of boundaries. So antecedent boundaries, or antecedent boundaries. These are boundaries formed before the cultural landscape was developed. So before there was life on Earth, and we had all the continents the way we are now. This is going to be antecedent boundaries because these are created before the cultural landscape. The boundary of North America around it, that we didn't change. It's still there now, and it was still there then. Africa, Madagascar. This was there then, this is there now. This is antecedent boundary. Pretty simple. They're here before the cultural landscape. We don't see a line separating United States from Canada. If we saw a line here, this would be antecedent because this would be separating Canada from the United States, and that would be a different type of boundary. Subsequent boundaries. This is a boundary created after settlement and evolution of the cultural landscape. So we see here we have boundaries of North America. We have Mexico, United States. We see the states in between the United States. We have Canada. We have the provinces. Also, we have Greenland as well. These are created after the cultural landscape was created and evolution to the cultural landscape. All these states were not here before. As the cultural landscape evolved, these states came here of the United States. Not all these countries were here. There's been one or two countries. I don't know the exact history of Latin America. However, as the cultural landscape evolved, we saw changes in boundaries. And of course, boundaries are going to continue to change. They're not all going to stay the same forever. So these boundaries we have now will be subsequent boundaries in the future. Consequent boundaries. These are a type of subsequent boundary, actually, which are boundaries that separate areas due to differences in people and culture. So a good example of this is India and Pakistan. This is separating Islams and Hindus. Pakistan, Islam. India, Hindu. Now, this would not be forced migration if you were in Pakistan and you were Hindu. You would be able to choose to go back to India. However, Pakistan is going to be primarily Islam. It was primarily Islam. And then India is now primarily Hindu, was primarily Hindu as well. And they just wanted to separate it because I don't really know the full things about that. But that's an example of a consequent boundary. There's differences between the people and culture, so we have a boundary there. I guess you could say South Korea and North Korea could be a consequent boundary because there's differences in the people and culture. They had different views, traditions. They have some similarities, of course, because they are Korean. However, there would be a lot more differences than there was, I guess, 100 years ago. And these are drawn by religion, language, ethnicity, and economic issues as well. So if there's a language difference, then there could be a consequent boundary. We see the religion already here, ethnicity, as well, and economic issues. I guess we could say North Korea and South Korea could be economic. I mean, South Korea is so much more developed than North Korea, so there's a big difference between those two. I guess you could say states. I'm gonna say countries, because I don't know if you would consider them to be two different states or as Korea as one whole state. Now let's get into geometric boundaries. Geometric boundaries are formed as straight lines, and they correspond to latitude and longitude. You can see here a decent amount of the Canadian-American border is geometric. There's a straight line here separating southern Canada and northern United States. And then the Alaska one, we have a uh, latitude. Yeah, we had a longitude, straight longitude line. I keep saying longitude, separating Alaska from Canada. And we have our latitude line separating United States and Canada. This is geometric, straight line, geometric. As you can see here, if we can look at some of the states and provinces of Canada and United States, there's a lot of latitude, longitude, geometric boundaries as well. So some of these states and provinces are also geometric boundaries. Now let's get into relic boundaries. These are boundaries that no longer exist, but is still a part of the cultural landscape. The Berlin Wall is a relic boundary. The Great Wall of China is a relic boundary because they don't exist for the purpose they were created for. The Berlin Wall is not a part of, I think it's Germany or Spain. I keep forgetting getting those countries mixed up. However, let's just say it's in Europe. The Berlin Wall is in Europe. However, it's not used for its purpose anymore. Some of it's taken down, however, some of it still stands. Like this picture, this part of the wall in this picture. However, it doesn't function as, the Berlin Wall. It's still part of the cultural landscape there. Now let's get into superimposed boundaries, which are boundaries drawn by external powers, and they ignore cultural organizations and the landscape. So, the 13 colonies, these are superimposed boundaries. Remember, we had natives living here in the 18th century. And when these boundaries were formed in the 17th and 18th century, it didn't care where the natives were, what the natives were doing, how their lives worked. It was to basically be drawn for the European powers, if that makes sense. So these are going to be superimposed. Alright, so that's a wrap up on the video. Complete the skill check on the screen. It'll help you. We learned about the purpose of boundaries, types of boundaries, do they correspond with the cultural landscape, how cultural landscape evolves and changes boundaries, and all of that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and subscribe, and goodbye.